Alright, so for this video, I just wanted to do an update of a few of the melon varieties, watermelon varieties that I've started with the Ziploc bag method. I've been getting a lot of questions on Facebook, specifically, how do the seedlings perform, or is this going on, is that going on, and yada yada. So I'm just gonna do a brief overview of the method and speak about some things that I see, the positives and some negatives, and maybe some conditions that we can work on achieving when planting these seedlings out. So as you know, I've been using Ziploc bags, napkins, and water to germinate these seeds. So after they germinate, a few days later, whenever I feel like it, I guess, I bring them outside and I transplant them. I don't pick specific times of the day, although morning would be ideal, or late evening. Afternoon can be kind of iffy, but as long as you put water on those seedlings, on the roots, there's no issue. So I don't know what day exactly I transplanted this Desert King right here. I'm going to tag the video down below, and I should have the date listed in the title of that video. So if you want to see how long it took for that Desert King seedling to reach this stage, or those seedlings to reach this stage, just check below in the description. All right, so here's one Desert King seedling. I've noticed something that's been influencing the growth, I believe, and it's how much light the leaves are getting and how much light the soil is getting. So I noticed the ideal condition would be, first let's look at this plant here. You can see it's large compared to this plant here, and this one is small compared to this plant here. So what's the reasoning that's causing this plant to have larger leaves than this one, and this one to have larger leaves than this one? There's one condition that's similar. They both have leaf exposure to sunlight. The sunlight, I mean, their leaves have sun exposure, and the root base is kind of shaded most of the day. This one right here, the iPhone camera is making it look brighter than what it is, but the sun is shining from this way. You can see the sunlight is bright right here because it's shining from that way. This grow bag is creating a shading effect on this 1 gallon container that's planted behind it. So we're it's about 2 o'clock in the evening right now, 2 or 3 o'clock. So the sun has shifted around. Early in the day it gets full sun, but later in the day it's completely shaded out. Now once the vine starts vining out, of course it's going to get sunlight, but for the time being, the time after transplant and until it starts vining out, it's going to grow slower than the ones that have sun exposure on the leaves. And I noticed the ones that have sun exposure on the leaves, they definitely, and if they have a minimum sun exposure on the soil, they definitely will grow larger. So this one has less sun exposure on the soil than this one. So that's why this one is a little bit larger. I have a few other seedlings we could look at because I transplanted a lot of them, as you can recall from the video. So this is a Desert King, kind of smaller. It's because it's planted high up and getting full sun all day. I noticed that as long as the leaves get full sun and those and the container soil gets no sun, that's the best growth. That's the best for growth. So this is one that's full sun most of the day. Some of them are kind of hidden. Here's one. This one gets partial shade sometime, and during the morning it gets partial shade, but later in the evening it gets full sun. That's just because of the positions that some of the containers are. This is a circular bed, so they all getting sunlight at different times of the day, and I'm realizing how that's influencing them, or how that's influencing the growth, depending on the time that they get light. So you can see these. You saw this one was hidden behind this little grow bag here. So that means its soil was being shaded out a little bit, which gives this one larger leaves than some of these that were actually in the full sunlight. So And this one too. I actually moved that bag back a little bit and I watered it about an hour ago, 30 minutes to an hour ago. So that one's starting to get sunlight now. But you can still see that the root area is still shaded out. So that one's a little bit larger than this one that's next to it and larger than that one. This one looks like it actually just sprouted. Still has a seed on there. It's the Desert King seed. All right, so we can see this one that's in full sun. It's a little bit smaller than those kind of shaded ones, but nonetheless, they're growing very well. Now, I've also noticed the same with Madura. So I planted a few Madura right there. I just wanted to see, say experiment just so I can see how well they do when planted in groups. So I want to be able to sow multiple seedlings in one hole instead of planting one seedling per hole, if I can increase the yield. So this is a yield experiment. You can see these Madura seedlings. Just take note, they're all similar sizes. I'm not going to say that they're growing slow, but I'm definitely not going to say they're growing fast. There's some more Madura seedlings down here. A tad bit bigger. That's because they have a slight bit more shading, but they still get sunlight during the day. Here's one that gets a little bit more shade, especially this one here. Their roots, they get a little bit more shade. You can see the sunlight cannot shine into there because it's like it's growing out of a crack. So this one has the largest leaves out of all those Madura. And now my largest Madura, we can directly see there's a big patch of shadow on that root zone, but the leaf is getting sun exposure. So this one has the largest leaves. So the point to take from this is, you look at the Madura, you look at any other of the other seedlings that I have growing, if they have sunlight shining on that soil, it's going to slow their growth down a little bit. If the soil is shaded and the leaves have sunlight shining on them, that's going to be the perfect conditions for growth. I also noticed that with these peppers here, this pepper here is growing in a similarly to the larger growing melons and watermelons. There, the root area is in shade and never getting sunlight, but the leaves are getting full sun all day. I also have, we can go look at Royal Golden, which I transplanted yesterday. Oh, look at this one, watermelon. So we can't see the root zone unless I go back into here, and I use this bottle for drip irrigation. You can see that stem coming up right there. That's the watermelon plant. That's where it's planted at. That area it's in is getting a lot of shade, thus it's causing this vine to grow very well. It's already produced about 2 or 3 female blooms. Insects ate one because I had it tucked in shade, so now I'm just gonna let the female blooms hang out in sunlight. Now we can see another female bloom on the way, and this is a larger one. So the plant is growing vigorously. It's growing real fast. Has some nice length to it. I planted some more watermelon vines because I didn't realize at first how important it is to shade that soil out and but not shade the leaves. I didn't realize that importance until today. Honestly, I just realized it. So this is some more watermelon vines, kind of in a similar situation as the one we just saw, but these have a little bit more sunlight on the root zone. These here have less sunlight on the root zone. These are some newly planted watermelons, and I'm expecting those to produce much better than the ones that have sunlight shining on them. So here, Royal Golden, of course we just transplanted it, so not enough time to see any difference. But what I'm starting to do is I'm starting to mulch the bags as I collect material, as I collect plant material. So I use some grapevine trimmings. I'm going to use some of the excess growth from my Hisho Wu vines. The Hisho Wu just grows wild. Like right now, it's just growing all through my blueberry bushes. It just climbs and grows everywhere, so makes perfect mulching material. Hisho Wu is actually a medicinal plant. It's grown for its roots. It's normally grown for about 5 years, so until that root gets harvested, We're gonna be collecting a lot of mulch from this high leaf producer. So you can see those royal golden, kind of like right here, standing up. They are doing well. I watered them probably an hour ago. I came out in the evening and watered them. I should have watered them during the morning because it's been 100 degrees. But you can see they're doing very fine. Some of them are laid down a little bit just because the stems were a little bit long. But I've transplanted everything else the same way I transplanted these royal goldens, and you can see they are definitely thriving. Their embryonic leaves opened up to the sun, and they are now producing true leaves, or beginning to produce true leaves because they're in the soil. They weren't going to produce true leaves until they touched that soil. That's what I also noticed. It doesn't matter how long you leave those seedlings in those Ziploc bags, they won't produce true leaves until those seedlings hit the soil. So some of them actually did dry out. I'm going to be real transparent with y'all. That's because I wasn't watering. It took me over 36 hours to come do a second watering after transplant, which is never ideal. You want to water at least every 24 hours, maximum every 12 hours, or something like that, or twice a day. But this one dried out for sure. You can see that. But the one next to it doing very fine. They're all standing. The ones that are still living, standing up, doing wonderfully. You can see I actually went with the idea to plant 2 per container just because I had so many seedlings. When I was planting with y'all saw me do like 3 containers on the ground or something. And I planted 1 seedling per container, but I decided to do 2 per container because I want to test the yield, just like with Madura. I want to test the yield, and I want to test the yield to see how well they do. I want to test the size of the melons to see if they're still able to grow full size, either when planted in a hole with another plant or multiple plants. So that's what we got going on. That's how these seedlings work when you plant them out without soil. How I've been doing. The Royal Golden was 8 days old when I planted it out. Not sure how old Desert King was, but they all been in similar conditions or similar. I planted them all in similar time spans, basically. But that's a beautifully growing Desert King. You can see it starting to vine out. Multiple true leaves. See y'all in the next one. Keep the roots shaded, leaves exposed for the greatest growth.